It happens to you at almost every single family gathering, holiday dinner, or casual weekend visit, and you have never truly questioned what is actually taking place right in front of your eyes. You are standing in a softly lit living room, holding a perfectly calm, deeply content baby. The infant is resting against your chest, breathing softly, entirely at peace with the world. Then, a smiling relative walks over. They reach out their arms, their face beaming with pure joy and affection. You gently lift the baby and hand them over. It is a seamless, careful transfer. But the very second the baby's weight settles into this new person's arms, everything changes. The infant's eyes go wide, their tiny chest heaves, their face turns a dark, panicked shade of red, and they let out a blood-curdling, breathless scream that instantly shatters the peace of the room. The relative awkwardly laughs it off. You reach back, apologize, and take the baby into your arms again. Within seconds, the crying stops. You have seen this happen hundreds of times. You have likely been the person holding the crying baby, feeling that sudden sting of rejection. And you have probably just accepted the standard explanation, brushing it off as a completely normal quirk of childhood. We laugh it off as simply being stranger danger. We tell ourselves that the baby is just a little bit fussy, or maybe they are tired, or perhaps they just prefer their mother. But what if I told you that in that microscopic split second, the exact moment the physical transfer takes place, that baby is not just reacting to a new face? They are not just being difficult. They are executing a millions of years old, highly sophisticated survival code. A deeply hidden psychological and biological protocol written directly into human DNA. And this ancient mechanism does not just explain why babies cry. It fundamentally shapes how every single one of us interacts with the world, perceives threats, and understands human behavior today. People usually believe this phenomenon is entirely about basic visual familiarity. The common theory, passed down through generations of parents and pediatricians, is that babies cry because they suddenly realize they are not looking at their primary caregiver. We think they miss their mother's specific scent, or that the new person's facial features just look slightly weird and unfamiliar to their developing eyes. It makes perfect, logical sense, right? We assume the baby is simply confused by the sudden change in scenery. But this explanation is completely incomplete. In fact, it is entirely wrong. If this reaction were simply a matter of visual facial recognition, a baby would never scream when handed to a grandmother they see 3 times a week. They would not panic when passed to a father who has been in the same room with them all afternoon. Yet, as any parent will tell you, they absolutely still do. A baby can be staring right at a familiar, loving family member, smiling at them from the safety of their mother's arms. But the moment they are physically handed over, the panic sets in. It is not about what the baby sees. It is about what the baby deeply, instinctually feels is happening to their actual body. Neuroscientists and developmental psychologists at leading research centers, including brilliant minds operating out of institutions across North America like the University of Toronto and Harvard, have spent years mapping infant brain activity during these exact high-tension moments. They wanted to see what was actually happening beneath the surface of that tiny skull. They attached incredibly sensitive, non-invasive electroencephalogram sensors, EEG caps, to infants to monitor the electrical impulses firing across their developing brains during the physical transfer from one adult to another. And what they discovered on those glowing monitors surprised everyone in the observation room. They were not looking at a brain that was simply confused by a new visual stimulus. They were not looking at mild infant annoyance. They were watching a brain that was actively detecting a severe, immediate, and existential threat. When you hand a baby to someone else, the infant is not experiencing a minor psychological discomfort. Their amygdala, the ancient almond-shaped fear and emotion center located deep within the brain, fires up in exactly the same intense, overwhelming way an adult's brain would if they suddenly found themselves slipping off the edge of a crumbling cliff. To the baby, the physical transfer of their body weight, the subtle shift in gravity, and the momentary loss of the primary caregiver's solid physical boundary triggers a massive primal alarm system. You have to remember how incredibly vulnerable human infants are. Unlike a newborn horse that can stand and run within hours of birth, human babies are born entirely helpless. They cannot fight. They cannot flee. Their only defense mechanism, their only weapon against a harsh and unforgiving world, is their caregiver. Therefore, they are not crying because they do not like the new person's face or the color of their shirt. They are crying because, evolutionarily speaking, leaving the primary caregiver's arms historically meant one of three terrifying things. It meant they were about to be dropped, they were about to be abandoned in the wilderness, or they were about to be handed over to a predator. The baby's brain does not know it is in a safe, modern suburban living room. The baby's brain thinks it is in the Pleistocene epoch, and any disruption in physical contact is a matter of immediate life and death. The scream is not a complaint. It is an emergency distress beacon designed to force the caregiver to take them back instantly. But this is where the mystery deepens, and this is where the psychological reality gets even stranger. The baby is not just reacting to the new person. They are reacting to you. In a genuinely fascinating and somewhat unsettling psychological experiment conducted to study infant attachment and emotional regulation, researchers set up a highly controlled environment with hidden cameras. They brought mothers and their infants into a beautifully lit, comfortable room. The mothers were instructed to sit, hold their babies, and simply chat with a female stranger sitting across from them. The experiment was divided into two very distinct, highly monitored phases. In the first phase, the mother remained totally calm. The researchers monitored her vital signs, ensuring her heart rate was steady, her breathing was slow and normal, and her nervous system was completely at baseline. When the researchers signaled her to hand the baby over to the stranger, the mother did so easily. The baby usually fussed for a brief second, that natural evolutionary alarm bell ringing. But because the transfer was smooth, the baby calmed down almost immediately in the stranger's arms. Then came the second phase of the experiment. The researchers asked the mother to take her baby back. But this time, before she was instructed to hand the baby over again, the researchers asked the mother to silently recall a highly stressful, deeply upsetting memory. She was told to think about a moment of severe anxiety or panic in her life. She did not say a single word out loud. Her facial expression barely changed. She maintained a polite, totally normal outward appearance. But beneath her skin, a biological storm was brewing. Her heart rate slightly elevated. Her breathing became just a fraction more shallow. Her micro-movements became slightly rigid. And most importantly, the microscopic spikes in her skin's electrical conductivity, the tiny, invisible beads of stress sweat, altered her natural chemo signals. When the signal was given, this stressed mother handed the baby over to the exact same stranger. The physical motion was identical. The stranger was identical. But this time, the infant screamed hysterically. The baby flailed, panicked, and could not be consoled by the new person. The researchers realized something profound in that moment. The baby was not reading the stranger at all. The baby was reading the invisible, completely silent biosignals of the mother during the transfer. The mother's silent, internal stress was interpreted by the infant as an environmental warning. The baby's logic was simple. If my ultimate protector is suddenly experiencing a biological stress response right as she hands me away, then this situation must be incredibly dangerous. You are not just watching this phenomenon happen at a family party or a social gathering. You are actively, biologically participating in it every single time you interact with a child. Whenever you hold an infant, your nervous system is essentially acting as a wireless transmitter, sending massive amounts of raw data directly into their developing brain. Your hidden anxieties, your unspoken stress about a looming work deadline, your slight hesitation about the overly enthusiastic relative taking the baby, your own internal discomfort in a crowded room. All of it is being downloaded by the infant in real time. You are their emotional Wi-Fi router. If your signal is broadcasting panic, their system will instantly connect to that panic and amplify it. When a baby cries in someone else's arms, it is very often a direct reflection of the subtle, invisible tension that you, the person handing them over, did not even realize you were holding on to. And this reveals a terrifying yet incredibly beautiful truth about human behavior and the nature of human consciousness. We are deeply conditioned by modern society to think of ourselves as entirely isolated individuals. We believe we are completely contained within our own minds, safely locked behind our own skin. We think our private thoughts are truly private. But this infant survival response proves that human beings are fundamentally, biologically porous. Long before we have language to express our feelings, long before we even have a solid sense of self or an understanding of our own identity, we survive by constantly reading the microscopic nervous system fluctuations of the giants walking around us. We are biologically programmed to feel other people's unspoken fear. We are wired for limbic resonance, the capacity for sharing deep emotional states through entirely nonverbal physiological cues. And here is the most unsettling kicker of all. We never actually grow out of this. We just learn to mask it. Think about the adults you interact with every single day in your normal life. Think about that one boss who can walk into a meeting room and instantly make everyone's chest feel tight and anxious without uttering a single negative word. Think about that one friend who always makes you feel deeply exhausted and drained after a simple coffee date. Or think about the complete stranger standing near you on the subway who gives you a sudden, inexplicable bad feeling in the pit of your stomach. You are still using the exact same infant survival mechanism. Your ancient, finely tuned radar is still constantly scanning the heart rates, the micro-expressions, and the invisible stress signals of the people around you. The major difference, the great tragedy of adulthood, is that we are actively taught to ignore these primal signals. We are socially conditioned to prioritize logic, politeness, and societal norms over our own biological intuition. We override our deeply evolved threat detection system just to avoid making a situation awkward. We stay in the room with the person who makes our skin crawl. We accept the physical transfer, so to speak, even when every alarm bell in our body is screaming at us to pull back. But that ancient software is still running in the background of your brain, desperately trying to keep you safe from unseen predators. So the next time you are at a gathering and you see a baby burst into absolute tears the second they are handed to an eager uncle or a smiling friend, do not just smile awkwardly and say the baby is being fussy. Do not dismiss it as a random tantrum. Look closer. You are witnessing the rawest, most ancient form of human survival unfolding right in front of your eyes. You are watching a perfectly tuned biological machine execute a flawless, life-saving algorithm. An algorithm that has successfully kept our entire species alive through the darkest, coldest, and most dangerous epochs of human history. The baby is not misbehaving. The baby is surviving. And they are using the exact same hidden superpower that is quietly keeping you alive right now. But if human babies are genuinely that incredibly sensitive to our hidden stress, our invisible biological signals, and our microscopic physical cues, what exactly happens to their highly sensitive, rapidly developing brains when they are constantly exposed to cold digital screens that perfectly mimic human faces but offer zero biological feedback? Are we accidentally hijacking our own deeply embedded evolutionary code? Are we breaking the very mechanism that makes us human? That is exactly the terrifying reality we are going to explore in the next video. Tell me in the comments down below, have you ever had a baby mysteriously start screaming the absolute second you held them? And did you ever suspect you were the one secretly causing it?